Session 17, Rift of Nations. Oh, I'm excited. If you see the title of this video, Curiosity Killed the Cat, you maybe have an idea what might be going on here, because we had some losses, we had some successes, we had some failures along the way here, and the session did not go as planned. So real quick, sponsor of this video is myself, my Patreon. If you do like what I'm doing here, I started this channel. It's actually almost monetized, which is awesome to have this second channel start to become more and more, and anything from this channel I want to be able to put more back into it. I want this channel to become live plays instead of me talking about it. I probably will still do these breakdown videos, but I want to show you guys gameplay of at the table and all that kind of stuff. And the bigger this channel grows and the bigger everything that I do grows, the more I can do that and get to that point. So if you want to support what I do here, check out Patreon. It's the best way to do it, and appreciate it. So into the session, I always start these things off what I thought was going to happen and then what actually happened. The session did not really go where I thought. There's a big decision to make, and they made a different one than I thought. So that was the case here. I also actually, we'll just get right into it. So here's what the plan was here. Session 17, 8 p.m. is what time it was in the day, because they had 24 hours to be able to get through this thing, and they speed ran this dungeon for real. Like they went through it so fast the time didn't even honestly matter. Like I thought it was going to be a thing, but they never even long rested inside this dungeon. Granted, one of the players was at 9 health, another one was at 12 health, so they were low on health at the end there. So keep that in mind. They were pretty spent and never long rested during this entire multiple session dungeon. Never long rested, but that's honestly, that's a DM note there. We're back to here. That's a DM note of keeping the pressure up, whether it's time pressure, whether it's logistical pressure of where you're going and all that kind of stuff. Is it safe? Do they feel safe enough? So I feel good that they didn't feel safe enough to long rest in this dungeon. Too much time. They gotta go. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was intended on my part, right? So I knew the start of this session was going to be a collapse, and then I knew that the description, I had some little intro, little nuggets there to kind of hint at this mysterious figure at the top of the stairs. Because if you didn't know, they are escaping from the bottom of this 4-level down dungeon. They're in the 4th layer in the basement of this ancient ruins dungeon. They're trying to get out, and on the way out, they see this figure that's stopping them, and this nightmare water caster that is shooting water back down at them. And he says real quick before they go down, "Thanks for taking me here. Now I can unleash." So referencing some vague things about how they have led him here. Now he can release the Demigorgon. Whoa. Right next door to where they were, literally really close to where they were, he shoves them down with water spell casting, and then he's going to release the Kraken, release this very dark nightmare force entity, release it into the world. I thought that was going to be enough to have them go back and fight this thing, but they're in the middle of a collapse. They're very low on health and resources. So they did not do that. They chose to keep going. This is the big thing. I guess we were kind of blurring the lines between what I thought was going to happen and what did happen. I thought they were going to go down and fight this thing. I had a whole battle prepared, a super really, like I would break down the battle, but I might throw it at them later, because there's this nightmare water caster. He's one of the big bads, like henchmen. He was going to wreck them. He summoned water elementals that was going to suffocate them and like try and drown them. Like the water elemental would like overlap them and drown them alive, right? Or drown them dead. He had water that could push and pull around. He created walls of water. It was this whole thing. It was gonna be really cool. And there was a sleeping manticore that was gonna be fighting as a third party in this thing. So it was gonna be like a 3-way battle between all 3 sides. The PC, anyway, didn't end up happening. They chose to get the heck out of there, because I told them at the table, like I did a little timeout as a dungeon master, and I was like, look, if you guys go this way, it's totally possible. You're not just like choosing a stupid choice. Like, these are 2 real choices. You can go down this way and try and stop this person from doing whatever it is they're trying to do. It seems like they're going to be releasing this thing that's sealed away. You can go down there and try and stop them. You don't know how powerful they are. You know how weak you are with as far as your health and stuff goes and your resources. that would be a risk. And guarantee you, if you do go down there, that's more time, and it's going to be a more difficult skill challenge to get out. But is the risk worth the reward? I don't know. Or is the reward worth the risk, I guess I should say. So that was their choice. They really didn't know what they were going to do, and they chose to get the heck out of there. They're super low in health, all this kind of stuff, right? So I respected the decision, and they're getting out of there. I honestly had a little bit of relief, because I honestly thought if they chose to go down that way, a player would have, a character, a PC would have died tonight, for sure. For sure. One of the NPCs did. Spoiler alert. But I for sure thought a PC would, if they had made that choice. And I purposely wanted to put that level of danger here because they went here. There was also, just as a side note to reference, there was a chance that they could have gone to something else. I had set out for them. They could have gone to the Grasslands base. Y'all remember the Grasslands base from like episode 10 or something? There was this Grasslands base that they could have gone and infiltrated and got a bunch of stuff from, got a lot of information from. They could have gone there first and then to these ruins. But they skipped it. They skipped over all this content and went straight to that thing. And that's not me necessarily punishing them for like not doing it in order. It's nothing like that. Because I love that they went and made the choice they did. I think it's great. But they are now biting off more than they can chew, and they're in a spot of danger. So I needed to get that across, that you're not messing around. Like you're going to lose somebody. This is crazy, right? What y'all are doing here. And there's a theme going on of the ancient ruins of Zalor, the nation of Zalor, known for their revival magic. Like, I want to have that theme come across too. And I wanted to have a resurrection thing at the end of this thing. I wanted them, the players, to have an experience. That's one of the checkboxes I have as a dungeon master. And maybe I can make a video on this on the main channel, but a dungeon master checklist of, I want to have someone around them die and them have to go through a resurrection challenge to get them back. Hopefully it's an NPC on the first time that they do this, so they can see how it works and they understand what's at stake. Because just understanding that this is what happens if you die, they're going to understand of, oh, okay, wow, this, if I ran this for myself, I might lose my character. Wow. I liked getting that moment and giving it to them. It took me 17 sessions to do it this time, but here it is. So how did the thing go? Where's everything going down here? Here's what the whole thing looked like. They started off the skill challenge, and this nightmare caster water person shot them down this thing. I told them I am tracking failures on any roll. Any failed roll, I'm putting a tally down, and that tally mark is increasing the difficulty of the end of this thing, the stakes of how long you're in this thing for, when it's just absolutely going to collapse, and I just pull the cord on this whole thing. It was a good pulse check for me to see how bad things were going, right? And also I had sand timers that I put down a sand timer, and if it ran out, that's also a tally mark. And every round of combat is a tally mark, which honestly, whenever I said that, I might have not said that if I wanted them to do the combat, but I want it to be their choice. So the tally marks are helping me and getting across to the players mechanic wise how long things are taking. How long are you down here for? So I gave them that. And then, all right, I set the stage with that. And then we had a 1-round skill challenge of this water shot down the stairs. So each player could go around, say what they did. The first 2 players to speak up, failed. One of them rolled a 1, one of them rolled a 2. It was a failure, right? Not a natural 1, but a total of 1. Anyway, so they started off real bad and in not a good way. So it's a 1-round skill challenge. There's 4 players at the table. 2 failures happen, right? So now, best case scenario for this group, it's a halfway 50-50. That feels lame. So here's what I did. First 2 players fail. Okay, here we go. Guys, y'all need to win out from here. Here we go. So one of the players went, and if it was a failure, then the whole thing was going to be just screwed, right? And I'd have the final person still make their check to see for the overall total of failures that I'm counting up. But this is a 1-round skill challenge. The result of the challenge is what happens after 1 round. How many successes versus failures do you have? So 2 failures down. Next player, succeeds. Basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to form a human wall through this water that's rushing down them in this like stairway downwards. They're trying to latch on to finally the player that succeeds latches on, holds on to a section of the wall, anchors himself to P. P is the NPC golem. There's this like golem, this like 8-foot tall golem that's like with them that they've activated and awakened last session. It was really cool. They really love the character. We'll talk about more of them later. So latched onto them, they're forming like this human chain of what they were trying to do. And then it was two failures, one success. So now I'm at a point as a dungeon master where I'm like, okay, I don't want to have the player roll and then let's say they succeed, and then that's not a victory moment, and then I have to roll it. Usually I do the tiebreaker. I roll a d20, and high they succeed, low they fail as like a tiebreaker. I was like, that's not how I want to start this thing. And there's plenty of NPCs around, so I said, all right, here we go, guys. I'm going to take this dice. This is the NPC check. The NPCs are going to get +5 to their roll. They're not quite as good as you guys. You guys normally roll about a +6, maybe a +7 if it's super awesome. If you have, you get proficiency bonuses 2 for level 4 party, and then they have 5 in the stat. That's where the 7 comes from. Anyway, so NPCs are going to make a check, right? And we'll see how it goes from there. If they succeed on this, it's all going to be on you. And I pointed to the last player, and that sets the stage for them. So here we go. I said, but if they fail, this is going to be what the tiebreaker is. And if they fail, it's now going to be all on you. So it was like they can only help them. It couldn't hurt them is kind of how I set it up, just to see what the NPCs would do. And if the NPCs fail, then okay, here we go. Good luck to you. But I rolled it and they succeeded. So now it set the stage of 2-2, right? 2 successes, 2 failures. And I also, as a side note to tell you guys, I didn't oversell that, oh, this can't hurt you. The NPCs, oh, it's not going to be a bad thing. No, it's fine. It can't hurt you. As a dungeon master, I wasn't going to have it like spill out of control and like make them fail. But I wanted to have the roll happen. Okay, it was a success. And now I can clarify it and set the stage for where everything's at. I would have set the stage differently if they would have failed. And then maybe I would have had an extra layer there. I've talked about this in some of the breakdown videos I do. If they failed, if the NPCs failed, and then I was like, oh no, now it's on you. And if they succeeded, all right, cool. Now it's a 50-50 shot, right? I'm going to roll a D20. Here's the moment. That's probably what I would have done. That is another layer that I'm adding in there as like a safety net in some way, because I ultimately don't want them to start off this extremely deadly session with an absolute failure right out the gate and everything's going bad and it's just all, and they never, you know what I'm saying? I want there to be a sense of urgency, and I know that many senses of urgency are coming because I set them up for a very hard skill challenge. If I set up an easy skill challenge for them, then I would have not pulled any punches, and I would have probably made it harder on them now, so they start off with a failure so they can come up out of it, right? Telling a story, right? Experience the highs and the lows, right? So they succeeded. The NPCs succeeded. Awesome, great. They formed this human chain to the final person. What do you do? And they rolled and they got a success, and they finished the human chain to be able to stand the onslaught of water, and it subsided and the caster's gone. Where'd the caster go? They go up to the top of the steps, and the NPC person that they revived, the Empress of the Fallen City, freaking out. He's going to release the Demigorgon, and we have to stop him. But can we stop him? I don't know. Can he even open the door? I don't know. So I just had her be indecisive but share worry. I wanted to give them I wanted to give them enough information so that if they did choose not to, they would feel responsible and not just like, oh, we didn't know. No. She definitely made it clear what he's doing is bad, and if he releases this, it's really bad. We should probably stop him. They still chose not to. Totally get it. Totally cool. I also played the NPC as like, I don't know, because to give them the onus and impetus of the decision, and it's their choice, right? So they chose to move on and press forward. So now how this whole thing works is choose your path, Sand Timer, Nightbane versus Escape. Do they stop him or not? Who knows? And here's the skill challenge. The skill challenge was DC 14, right? You get 1 point for a success and 2 points for rolling a 20+, which is beating it by 5 or more, right? So 5 or more technically would be a 19. So a 19 would technically be by 5. but I said 20 because 20 is cooler, man. So if you rolled a 20 plus, a 20 or higher on the skill check, that's 2 points of successes for the skill challenge. And they needed 8 successes. Cool. Got it, right? That's kind of how the whole thing works. And then this is for, I did a live stream on my main channel where I set this thing up and how I created this whole thing. But as I'm running this, these are little notes for myself. Nothing formal, nothing structured. These are general notes of like stuff that can happen to them. A barrier comes in, huge rumble chunks fall down. A sinkhole comes out from it. This one saved my life. I ran out of options. I was thinking, I was like, what can I throw them? What can I throw them? And I was kind of like, I ran, like, it's a cave in, it's an avalanche. You can only say it so much. And I wanted to throw enough stuff at them in a skill challenge because I want to give them things to interact with. It's one of the most important things about a skill challenge dungeon masters need to do is give them things to play with. So I ran out of stuff. I was like, oh my God, sinkhole. And I threw that at him and it was a cool little thing to add there at the end. Vertical boulders lit, split the party. I never did the split the party because it felt like it would be clunky. So I had these little notes for myself to go through the skill challenge. And here comes the fun part. The D20 curveball punishments. Each PC has a very important NPC, partially by design, right? It was also their choice of who they brought along with them. So Ivar the fighter has his girlfriend of many years that he wrote into their backstory. She's along with him. Cool, that's one. Darius has his love interest Petra, this like nature, they bond over nature and stuff. And this relationship's been building up since session 1. They're not official yet. If you're interested, they're not really, they haven't made it officially. It's so fun to just play around with that. Anyway. So that NPC is very important to Darius, the wizard / warlock character, and then Q has P. Q, the Warforged barbarian, has P, the golem protector, who are 2 of the same type of creatures from different generations, right? The ancient civilizations had golem protectors. The new civilizations have warforged protectors. There's only 10 of them ever each, right? In each of the different eras of time. And they made friends. They bonded so many different ways. It was so cool to see their bond. So that's an important NPC. And then Clara has a pet cat she's had since she was 13 years old back in her backstory. And she's always had this pet cat that just was a little magical, but a little suspicious. So each of these PCs had a very important NPC. So I tied their failures to their NPC, right? And you might call me an evil dungeon master if you want, but I wanted to put someone was going to die, and that sounds like bad or whatever, but this was a very challenging skill challenge that I purposely set that way. 8 successes you need before 3 failures, right? And any failure causes someone to potentially die. Oh my goodness, right? And I also had another ending save to where whenever they left the whole thing, everybody was going to roll a d20, and if you rolled low or failed the save or whatever the final moment was, if you failed it, your NPC was killed in the process. Like no punches pulled. Like it's an avalanche of things. I'm not going to roll for damage for that. I'm sorry. If I did roll for damage, sure, I'm rolling 100 d6. I just, you know what I'm saying? That's not the point. It's deadly amount of damage you're trying to avoid. Can you do it? Right? And I let them know that at the beginning. This is the most deadly thing that I've thrown at you guys, and it kind of makes sense why you're here, because your choices led you here. And like I said, they skipped over it. Anyway, so in order for a PC to die, their NPC would have had to also die, and then they keep rolling really bad, and then they also possibly, oh my goodness. But with all of that death talk being said, I had an NPC with them that could revive them. Just for the record, I am a lot more likely to do deadly things when the party group has the capabilities to revive people, right? A goal of mine as a dungeon master was to let them experience a resurrection. Hopefully an NPC's resurrection, right? I said that earlier. So the first failure happened. Darius had the first failure. He tries to go for a thing. He's using wind to try and block something and doesn't work. So the wind catches up and knocks off Petra, and Petra starts falling to her death. that's only one failure, baby. We're not messing around. And that's when they knew, and they started to catch on, like, oh my God, every failure is real bad. So Petra starts falling off, and now that's awesome because it gives other people things to contribute towards the skill challenge, which was great. Ivar tried to catch her, and then Saffron helped him along. The NPC helped him. He was able to catch her and throw her off to safety. Boom, that's a success, right? And so then we keep it going. So every time a failure happened, something bad was going to happen to whoever failed NPC. And if that NPC was unconscious, then it'd be them. You see what I'm saying? So, second failure, I threw a curveball at him after the first round. I threw a side opening. Oh, you look off to the side and there's gems and gold, and it seems like glowing items of some kind. There's magic items and gold and gems in this side room. Do you go to it? I looked around the tables trying to read them. Clara, the artificer, she had her eye like, I was like, do you want to spend this round's check towards this? If you succeed, it does not go towards the skill challenge. It goes towards collecting this loot. But there's a lot of very valuable things in this room. But if you fail, it does count towards the failure here. And she's like, she's like going back and forth with it. In her moment of indecision, this part's beautiful. You can't write this stuff. Ivar, the hero savior of the group, he's like, do I see her hesitate? I was like, you have a constant pulse check of this whole group. You've established that for all of these sessions. You're keeping tabs on everybody, making sure everybody's okay. You notice her stop and hesitate, and you look back and you see it happening. He's like, can I make and try and persuade her? Because I asked her that, she's like, no, I guess I wouldn't. I was like, do you want to make a roll for this? I like offered up, and I said, you can choose as the player. You're in 100% in control of your character. You can choose to keep going, or do you want it to be a roll? Do you want to leave it up to a roll? And then she's like, and this is when Ivar chimes in. He's like, all right, I'm gonna try and persuade her. And like, that was a creative thing to do in the skill challenge. Cool. You can do whatever you want in these skill challenges. Let your players come up with things to do. And he has decent charisma. Okay, sweet. So he makes a persuasion check. He rolls an inspiration dice to add on to it, and he gets an 8. Like, it's definitely a failure. So not good. So I was like, that's another failure. And now that failure means his NPC's in danger. But wait, so she chooses, she's like, you know what? Because of his failure, I think Clara would go. And I was like, props. I gave her an inspiration dice for choosing to put her character in danger like that from role playing it. That's an inspiration moment right there. Anyway, props to her. So the player, anyway, so she chooses to go this way into get this magic items from the loot in the moment of this. She's playing along with how the dice are going and how the story's going. So she goes in there, collects all the stuff. And I was like, here's what happens. She rolled and she succeeded on her roll. Yeah. But here's what happens. This was a trap, obviously. Everything's collapsing and you're seeing what's going on. So I made her call as a dungeon master. They didn't, maybe you don't agree with it, but my players all went along with it. Absolutely loved it. It was fine. And this is kind of the control you should have as a dungeon master to be able to make calls like this. I said, okay, you succeeded at the roll. Again, your roll does not contribute towards a skill challenge. You had your little selfish moment. We all had, like, it was funny at the table, like, oh, get shiny things, get it. So you get the stuff, but his failure and his natural one, I don't think that's a natural one, or he didn't get a natural one. His failure is not for him because he failed to convince you not to go into danger. So his failure is going to fall onto you and your NPC. And she's like, oh no, her cat, right? So don't worry. Curiosity Killed the Cat is the title of this video. So here's what happened. She is going, and one of the other players like, can I step in and save her? I was like, okay. I love when players step up and advocate for each other. So I was like, yeah, let's go for it. What are you doing, Darius? Darius, the nature-based caster, he wants to, he has to cast wind, but he needs a direction to do it. So he wants to inhale and take that direction of wind to try and like pull them out. I was like, ooh, awesome. I love it. Right. So he rolled for it. It was part of the thing. I had it contribute towards the skill challenge. It was a success towards the skill challenge. Right. And she made a deck save and he was able to save her from taking damage. But that failure is So that failure is that failure. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, so everything's fine now, keep going. Not this. That's not the tone I'm going for. I'm a super nice DM whenever I normally, but this I'm out for blood right here because I'm trying to give them an experience and tell a certain type of story right now and get them to experience a loss. And I'm not going to force it on them, but they failed. They failed the skill challenge, and they had a failure in that skill challenge. One of, towards the 3 failures. And here's what happened. So the wind gust pulls them out. They start to pull Claude out. Clara gets out. She said Claude gets pulled out. The wind gust picks him up, and a rock boom, smashes him to the ground, crushes him underneath the rock. And the Clara, the player of Clara at the table, her mouth, like, I just killed her cat. Like, for sure, I just killed her cat. So they were kind of shocked that I killed the cat in that little moment, right? But the thing is about this cat, if you've been watching this series, this cat is not a cat. This is Claude, who is a arc druid spellcaster, very powerful spellcaster that's had their memory wiped. They shapeshifted into a cat and had their memory completely wiped. So they've been a cat for over 10 years, about 10 years now, not knowing that they weren't really a cat. Because if you were a shapeshifter and you shapeshifted into a cat and had your memory wiped, you'd think you're a cat. So anyway, they've casted weird spells and done weird things, and there's been plenty of clues that this is the case. But whenever his health is reduced down to 0 in his cat form, which had like 5 health or whatever, once it goes down to 0, it now turns back into the normal person. So Claude, this cat who's been a cat for the whole backstory of a player and all of these sessions has just been a cat, turns into a halfling, half-elf type of situation. Like it's either a tall halfling or a short half-elf, who knows? And humanoid form, unmoving body. Wait, what? And then so they kind of knew something was going on, but they still that freak out, and that's a huge reveal to happen in the middle of an escape sequence, right? As they're trying to get out of the skill challenge. So they scoop up the body and they head on out, and Clara's freaking out. Her cat just turned into a person. Like, what? So curiosity killed the cat, because side note, Claude is dead right now. Like, it's not just unconscious, like he's dead. They didn't realize that until they got into, okay, so we see. So they're carrying this body and they're trying to get the heck out of there, right? And that's 2 failures. One more failure, the challenge is over, right? I told them that. So they're going on. They're up to 5 successes. They only need 3 more. They get 1 more. Okay, this is it. And then it's Q's turn, and he fails. He's trying to, there's things are collapsing. He kind of hesitates on his what he's trying to do. He fails. The player at the table was trying to think of something to come up with, and he really didn't say anything quick enough, and I want to keep the pace going, right? I want to keep the pace going, so I have stuff, like I showed you guys, all my different things I have loaded up, ready to keep the pace going. He hesitated, he paused, he didn't really, nothing really spoke to him to try and say something. I was like, here's what happens. Everybody, the water's rushing in around you. You see all the water, and he has in his backstory, part of his thing is he has an aversion and a phobia of water, and with all this water coming in, he has to do something, or he has to, he's just paralyzed in this moment. I said, you know what, for your thing, I'm going to have you make a wisdom saving throw. This is for your skill challenge. This also, and I don't want you to think I'm a mean dungeon master, because it's controlling your game. I'm inspiring you as dungeon masters. If you're running a skill challenge and players hesitate or pause, I've had them auto fail before, which in general I really try not to do that. That's kind of been like a thing. I think I've only done that ever once, so I really wouldn't even recommend necessarily doing that. But they had a chance to say something and they didn't, and they hesitated and they paused and they kind of you're making a wisdom saving throw because you're afraid in this moment, like the water, and that you're hesitating, you're pausing. So wisdom save, not the best modifier for this roll, but it's going to be something. And they rolled like a 4, and it was super bad. It wouldn't have even succeeded even if they did say something. So that's the 3rd failure. That's the 3rd failure, y'all. It's a failed skill challenge. What happens, right? But here's the thing. When I created this mega dungeon, right? I love creating mega dungeons and giving them things to find that unlock cool rewards and boons for them that change the different aspects of the rest of the dungeon. So if they could have definitely not found. If they found this golem, the golem, the 8-foot tall golem protector, if they found this golem was a 1 failure reset coupon. you could say. Because I knew that there was going to be a skill challenge to leave. Like whenever they were leaving, it was going to be a collapse. I was going to collapse the ruins on them. If they touched the resurrection crystal, which of course they're going to touch that crystal, the ruins are going to fall on. I knew they were going to have a skill challenge to escape fallen ruins. And I knew that if they reached 3 failures, the golem was going to die. If they reach that 3rd failure, the golem dies. That's literally the thing. Unchangeable, unavoidable, the golem dies. So I told them, they knew they failed the 3rd challenge. And so they thought they failed the whole thing. I said, here's what happens. The challenge is not actually over. Because here's what happens. And I go into kind of an emotional, triggering kind of description of a Hodor moment from Game of Thrones. Like, hold the door. Like, I said, you're going through Q in your moment of indecision. You sit there and you can't move. A boulder starts to fall and collapse on you, and you feel yourself get shoved out of the way, and Q shoulders it on their shoulder, catches it as another one falls, and they catch it, and they are now holding up this hallway, and it says, go, go. And like, he starts yelling out, and he always called them friends. And I used all the like friends, go friends, go. I hold, you go. And he was very simple speaking, and everyone had to go. I said, this is the 3rd failure. The 3rd failure is P, this golem, sacrificing their life so that you can keep going. You guys now still have. I said, I forget how I described it. I said, they are sacrificing their life to give you one more chance for failure, and if you fail the next one, then the challenge is over. They have sacrificed themselves for you in this moment so that you can keep going. And then I finished describing the scene because I didn't want them to be like, oh, let me try and do this. Let me try and do that. And then like I just wanted to be clear. This NPC is dead, right? If I make it very clear that this NPC is dead and a PC still wants to try and save him, I probably would have, I might have let it happen. It'd be a hard DC. I would have made it really challenging and all that kind of stuff. But they understood. They understood that this NPC that they really did, grow to love or whatever, was sacrificing themselves for it. And they now had one more chance. So I set the tone. I was like, guys, you need 2 more successes. And there's 1 failure. So, or 1 more failure and then it's done. And I even told them that it said, if this fails, everybody's making a roll, and it's just for a potential auto death for your NPC or possibly yourself, and then we might have to see what happens after that. And that might sound crazy, right? Like, I kill someone from a skill challenge, but I hope you see that the tone has been set in this way, right? I probably also would have had it be a dexterity save, and there would have been multiple layers to it. So I would have had it be a low roll into a dexterity save, and it would have felt right of these multiple failed attempts to be unconscious death. I would have had damage come on them and see what their health is, but they're all low, and they all knew that they were all low because they also chose not to long rest, which also would change things. Anyway, they all were 100% in on it. If you have, comments like, oh, you're such a mean dungeon master or whatever. Like, I don't care to defend myself in that way because my players loved it. I loved it. And it was the tone that was established and it all felt right. So, because the final moments here in the home stretch of everything, they got to the final part of the section where they see the exit. Darius throws his vine snake across to pull the lever for them to be able to get out of this thing. Rolls over a 20, which then completes it in 2 successes. In 1, they get out. And on the way out, I had everybody roll their dexterity save to get out, and if they failed, then their NPC was in danger, and if not, then no, and everybody was fine. So actually, everybody wasn't fine. How it worked is everybody made a dexterity saving throw. 3 of them succeeded, cool, fine. 1 of them failed, which was Clara, the one who had Claude, who already got killed. And I had her thing be all the gems and items she was carrying. That was what I ruled. I didn't rule it to be her life because I feel like I already checked the box, right? My whole goal was to kill an NPC, and I did that with Claude. I killed the cat, or the druid, I guess you should say. I killed Claude. That box has already been checked. So I did not have the setting be Clara's life, because auto killing a PC, like I just said, that would take a lot, and I feel like they've already gone through it. They made the choice earlier on to leave instead of stay and fight the NPC, which is already going to be a ton of problems for them. So I changed the definition of what I was going to have, because by my current setup of what I currently had set up is, if an NPC fails or if a PC fails multiple times and their NPC dies, they would die next. So rules as written, that would be Clara going unconscious and dying, and now they have to revive Clara. That doesn't feel right, right? In the same way that I said, like, I don't want to just kill a player in a skill challenge. It feels a little, I don't know. It had to be multiple failures, but I already got an NPC, so I'm not trying to do it. I'm trying to get you guys into my head, if that makes sense, so that you can make calls on the fly like this, because everything felt right. So I, in the moment, feel like that the story that was being told was Clara collecting all these gems and gold, hundreds and hundreds of gold dollars hundreds and hundreds of gold worth of stuff, maybe even 1,000 gold worth of items and material, and that failure represents her having to drop it to leave, right? Which also lets me not give them as much money, and I can have money be they don't get a whole bunch right there, because that was a lot of money that she could have got. But I had her drop that, and that's what she lost. She lost 1,000 plus gold, which is a pretty big loss, but I didn't auto kill her, because that would be too mean, right? So anyway, fast forwarding now, they're out, they made it, and they now have to do the resurrection ritual with Claude. There's a lot of really cool stuff. Darius called upon Serathis, his warlock patron, to offer his help. I need your help. And Serathis, I already had a thing here. Check it out. I had a thing here where Serathis, what happens after? Serathis reaches out about a great threat, blah, 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 blah. I already had that ready to go. So whenever Darius reached out to Serathis, as soon as Darius starts talking about what he wants, Serathis is like, there's a great evil that has been, and so they start to, they both need different things. But anyway, Darius called upon Serathis to be able to help him in some way, use his green nature magic to be able to try and help in this way. That was one of the 3 offerings. I have a resurrection system. It's part of Alkandar's Almanac. I've done a whole video on a resurrection system where you have when a player dies, or when a character dies, there is a resurrection skill challenge that starts. Lots of skill challenges here, y'all. And there's 3 offerings that can be made. One offering was Darius and his Serathis situation. The other offering was the other 2 players coming together on trying to give a revival water that they gathered from the ruins beforehand, and medical supplies to try and prep the body in some way. And then the final check was Clara talking to Claude and just kneeling down next to him, and like, it's weird for her though, because he was a cat her whole life, and now it's a person. That's strange. So she had a moment there, and a part of the moment also was sacrificing any remaining piece of gems to be able to use for the material component to get the spell to go off, because this NPC, Empress of the Resurrection Magic Nation, is who can actually revive them, which is also, I think I already said, why I'm also more deadly, because I know I have an NPC that's able to try and revive them. So it was a triple success on all 3 offerings to be able to bring this cat back, which means I had the final roll. I gave this large metal D20 to the player whose cat it was, and I said, you are making the roll for Claude. If you roll a natural 1, Claude is dead for forever. If you roll a 2 or higher, Claude comes back. So even that though is like, so rolls, it gets a 14, everything's fine, Claude comes back, and then now the lore drop begins. So we had a lot of lore happen. Claude comes back and he's talking about what he knows and doesn't know. The Empress of Zalor is there to now talk about what she knows and doesn't know. They meet back up with Alrod, who's the leader of the Wanderers, to talk about war battle tactics. Oh my goodness. So there's a lot of talking, a lot of role play, a lot of strategy, a lot of lore going on to kind of get them going on where they go next and what's going on. So fast forward to the end of the session, we ended up where I wanted to throw mass combat at my players. It's something that has been on the table and they've kind of skirted and avoided, but now it's to the point where also Alkandar's Almanac, I'm in the middle of writing it right now, and I wanted to do one big last final play test of the mass combat system in its final form, and this is going to be it next session. So I had these warring nations coming, and it was all brewing up to this thing, and it's and then hit them with it, and now they are part of a war. At the top of next session, we are going to war. Mass combat, the dungeon coach system of mass combat, that is going to be an Alcantar's Almanac, all that kind of stuff, depending on when you've watched this video, is going to be huge. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun to have them go to literal war in see how that whole thing goes. But as a side note, I'll tell you guys right now, the Demigorgons released. They did not go back and unshackle, or that they freed the Demigorgon. So the Demigorgon is going to join this battle at the end of it. So there's going to be a big mass combat, huge mass combat. Yeah. At some point towards the end of that mass combat, there's a Demigorgon that's going to attack the mass combat. And there's going to be a single Demigorgon in the middle of a wars field. Imagine hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of troops fighting mass combat in the middle of the mass combat, where there's technically 3 nations, 2 nations teaming up against 1 nation. They're going to be fighting each other, and then the Demigorgon comes. And we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll save that story and all the mechanics therein for next time. So, love these breakdowns. Thanks for sharing them here with me. Hope it's not too long and rambly or ranty, because this is truly like getting you guys in my head and trying to carry you guys in through these moments, because I don't see videos like this. Maybe that's because they're for a reason, but I love having you guys here and sharing these moments with you all through my campaign. So till next time, stay creative, think outside the box. Peace.